Ooh. Ooh. Hi everybody, welcome. Episode 97, if you can believe it. And I thought this was, we got him kicking around this time of year, so I thought that I would use this as a little bit of a prop. I'm gonna set it over here. These are actually out on our deck for the last couple of days. Of course, we're gonna be carving them soon, but I thought I'd bring them in for, to complete the tableau, as it were. So, here we are. Welcome. I'm gonna let all of my live viewers file in. I can see you here. If you see me looking to the side, it's to check the comments, which I'm not able to see here on my handy dandy app, unfortunately. So hi, welcome to everybody who's here already, and I will stall for a moment longer. Welcome to another episode, part 2 of the Courtyards I Never Told You About. This will be a fun one. I put a lot into this episode, so I think it should be a good time. So this is a home edition. I'm not on the streets, as you can see, and this is a home edition where you're getting particularly a lot of the home. I think this is maybe the most that I've ever showed before. So that's a staircase that goes upstairs, and some of our plants, and that's the kitchen. And then that is the deck to the backyard. Anyway, hope you enjoy the change of scenery. Truth be told, I was going to do this one out on the deck with the autumn ivy behind me, with the oranges and the reds and everything, but the neighbors, turns out they wanted to have a big party in their backyard today. So I had to find a plan B. This is the plan B. And I popped on the wide angle lens so we can get the full, you're pretty much seeing a pretty good portion of the ground floor of the abode, as it were. So let's check in with everybody. David says, love the black and white. Yeah, this is 100% Charlotte, my wife. 0% of this, is that true? Yeah, I think 0% of what you see here was my idea. I mean, I certainly paid for a lot of it, but she gets all the credit, Charlotte. I got my double cafe creme today, so you're gonna have to listen to me slurp and swallow a little bit. And I like this little setup that I found somewhere, who knows, but it's got this nice little wooden, it's actually dipping into my coffee, but anyway, some extra flavor. So I like that. That'll be keeping it warm for me today. And it just dripped on my pants, but that's all right. So let's jump right in here. I do have a soundtrack for this. So what I'm gonna do is kick this volume down a little bit. So as you know, we want the soundtrack to be there, but not bothering us. So you can give me your feedback. Let me go ahead and fire that up, actually, speaking of it. Just have a nice little something in the background. So I think that should be good. You can let me know in the comments, as you always do, whether it's perfect or too loud or too soft. Let's see, let's get relaxed here. Let's get into the courtyard mode. So welcome if you're just joining. Remember, if you are watching live right now, then I almost said cafe chats. The super chat function is there, the $sign, if you want to support the cause in real time. That's always appreciated. Other ways you can support the project is my Patreon page. You'll find a link in the description. And I know a lot of you are already there anyway, and I thank you for that. And then there are some very free ways to support the channel, which doesn't cost a darn thing. You can click like, the little thumbs up, or you can subscribe to my channel, or you can share this episode or any other episode. Speaking of super chats, thank you, Kristen Parker. I see that coming in. Amazing, appreciate it. So the courtyards I never told you about. These are spaces that I discovered one day. A lot of times they were, 99% of the time they're closed, but it just so happens that I'm there and the gate's open, and you know me, I'm never gonna leave an open gate unexplored. So that's what's here. And then for some reason life gets in the way, and I forget to tell you, I forget to post it, I forget to turn it into a blog post or whatever. And so these have accumulated over the years, in fact, in my camera roll of all of these spaces, and I say to myself, what a shame to have those photos and to have had that great discovery, but to have not gotten around to sharing it. So that's the point of these episodes, and this is part 2. If you're fairly new, or if you haven't watched part 1 of the Courtyard series, then I put the link in this description as well. Anna says the music's a bit loud. All right, let's do that. That's really the minimum. It's either that or 0. So just a bit loud, David says. Great, thank you for that feedback. I just kicked down the volume, and if it's still too loud, then we'll just get rid of the music altogether. This is always a work in progress anyway. So let's get to the photos. I don't think I have anything more to say. I had up to 15 different addresses, 15 different courtyards that I had to choose from. So it was a tough decision. I chose the ones that spoke to me for this episode, but know that the good thing is we're only seeing about half of them today, so there is definitely a part 3 of the Courtyards lined up for someday in the future when we're into it. Let me check in one last time. Thank you, David, for that. I really appreciate it. Patty says that's good on volume. Heather says better now. Okay, duly noted, folks. Thanks for the feedback. Let's jump into these Courtyards. Oh, I didn't prep that, sorry. It was supposed to be big. See, I can put it there, put it there, put it in front of the pumpkins, but that's not gonna do any good. We want it like that. So I tried to make some maps for y'all. I also put the addresses of every courtyard into the description as well. And so you don't necessarily have to listen very hard. Everything's going to be typed out for you in black and white if you want to pop these into your notebooks. Some of you will recognize right away that we're in the 6th arrondissement, the Saint-Germain-des-Prés neighborhood. You can see the Seine on the upper right there. And right here, let me, hold up. Anyway, did I stop the music? That was a mistake. Okay, so next to the Odeon station, let's get started, which you can see in the distance here, in fact. There is a street that stretches southeast. It's called the Rue de Médecine. This used to be, turns out, an old Roman pathway that divided 2 different vineyards. So you would have had a vineyard on the right-hand side where that building is, and another Roman vineyard on the left. And I think that's pretty fantastic. And just to know that when you're walking down any of these streets, you never know that some of them could be literally 2,000 years old. It's pretty extraordinary. So that's what this street is, the Rue de Médecine. And there are, in fact, a lot of schools of medicine in this area. In fact, that one to the right, that beautiful structure, is the Université de Paris. And then on the left, which is the next image that I'm going to show you, we have the, if you can make it out on the sign there, if you're watching on the big screen, it's called the Campus des Cordeliers, or the Campus of the Cordeliers. This is part of Paris' School of Medicine, and it's a campus of various structures, but what it used to be, even way back in the medieval and Renaissance era, is it was a convent of a Franciscan order of monks. And they were called les Cordeliers, and I believe, if memory serves, I didn't fact check this, but I believe, if my tour guide brain serves me, that they were called les Cordeliers because they used a corde, or a rope, to tie their robes. So rope being corde, and they were known as the Cordelier Franciscan monks of Paris and beyond. And very powerful, very noteworthy. And what you're looking at right here, the beautiful building, is the old refectory. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the campus gets its name from this old convent of the Cordeliers, and you can hopefully see that on the sign. What you can also see in this image is in the lower right, there's a lady entering, and there's a security guard off to the right-hand corner there. And so, because it's a campus, because there are students there and there are classes happening throughout the week, there is a security guard. And so I decided when I saw the gate open, I said to myself, what if I just act like a student? You know, I pulled that old trick of, ask myself, am I looking youthful enough today? And so I decided to give it a shot. And I went up to the security guard, gave her a big old smile and a bonjour, and just briskly walked past. I think she maybe checked my bag real quick. This was pre-COVID and everything. And I just walked right in. And what you get when you walk in, it's really worth it, if you can manage to pretend to be a student, is you get this vast courtyard and these arcades surrounding this space. And so it's very welcoming. So you hear this is essentially a campus of the School of Medicine. And I'm just going to let this run a little bit and give you an idea of this beautiful statuary and just a beautiful, serene, hidden atmosphere. Tara says she's got her map ready for these addresses. That's great. Coffee Talk says, would love to interview you on my YouTube show. Yeah, I'm down for an interview. Thank you. Go ahead and let me know about that. So yeah, I'm sure you feel the same way, but when you're in Paris or any foreign city and you're roaming around, sometimes the things that are unplanned, The discoveries that are not on your itinerary for the day are the ones that feel the most special and that you're most grateful for. Certainly the ones where this is normally obviously closed to the public. And every now and then, if you walk around long enough, and I've been doing it for 10 years, you will, destiny will smile upon you, and you will occasionally get a shot at an open gate or an open door or an understanding, laid-back security guard. I'm going to show you some views of some of the statuary here, which is really nice. It's always worth zooming in and getting close to the statues. Thank you so much for that, Kat. Appreciate the super chat and the support. It means a lot. You can see her arms broken there, unfortunately, but gorgeous. Here's another one. A lot of these, you're going to see a lot of busts. And as far as I can make out, they're former professors and notable medical gents. This one's really nice too. We're going to do a zoom in. It's beautifully framed in that archway. It's gorgeous, with a couple of allegorical ladies here under the bust. Look at that. Look at the movement of that, how it draws your eye up and around, like sort of twisting up to the bust. It's just really well done. Now this next statue is a little bit different. Look at this one. This is actually one of the curiosities of Paris, one of the bizarre details, and sometimes on the websites and the books of Paris when they talk about the bizarre and the unexpected, this is the kind of statue that you might see. And it's from 1910. It's called La Fâcheuse, and it's by a guy called Gabriel Jules Thomas, and he was a sculptor who did a lot of stuff. Thomas got work in the Louvre, in the Musée d'Orsay. He even did one of the statues high atop the Gare du Nord, the large train station structure itself. Up above the signage on the facade, they've got beautiful statues up along the rooftop. And so this is all the same sculptor. So he was not a nobody, he was the real deal. And this statue obviously represents death, no surprise there. And I guess it fit in with the whole, anatomical aspect of the medical school courtyard. And then it's standing essentially, the skeleton, on all of these symbols of, this is at the base of the statue, all these symbols of man's greed and vanity and pride and things like that. So you can clearly make out the crown on the upper left, and on the lower right you've got the jewels and the chest of treasures, and then the coins, and even above the coins and the chest, it almost looks like a palette, doesn't it? So that is interesting. Art and painting considered to somehow be thrown into the evils of man, and I don't know, that's an interesting thing to contemplate. I'm sure the artist had a reason, but anyway, these are all the things, and there's a sword on the bottom representing, a handle of a sword representing war. So it's unexpected, but we love those curiosities, those things that surprise us and make us think and realize that Paris is such a multifaceted space. It's not always just classical Greco-Roman style statues. And the finger's broken there. I assume it was pointing right at us. On a lighter note, right next door in the same courtyard, it happened to be spring, and these beautiful pink blossoms had been falling all over these cobblestones. And so I snapped a few photos of those. Thanks, Bob, for that comment, reminding everybody to hit the like button. With these blossoms, of course, I waited for a gust of wind, as you often do, and see if you can catch it. I got a little bit of the motion of the blossoms falling there. It's pretty fun. Also, Bob reminding everybody, thank you, Bob, to, if you can, pop this into 1080p for your YouTube resolution for the video res, if you can, if you've got a good enough connection. So I've got these arcades all around, and now you can see the arcades will lead us, well, I shouldn't say all around, it's three sides, but they will lead you to staircases that will take you up to the classrooms and the auditoriums, and obviously where the students are learning. So, I mean, you know me, of course, I had to go up one of the staircases to see what there was. All these busts around, again, of former professors, I assume, or doctors, and notable docs. So it's just so lovely to be surrounded by all this artistry. Jennifer's down with it. Andrea's into it. Gorgeous, gorgeous, they say. That guy on the left looks like Thomas Jefferson to me, but I checked the label and it's not, in fact. Jefferson did not make the cut. So here, these staircases, I took a couple of shots because I thought that they were pretty unique. If you look at how they're kind of folding their way upward, and really made for some pretty dynamite perspectives. And then this next one is a favorite. It's from the top looking down. I think it's a pretty fun image. Just lovely. Give me a little bit of vertigo, I admit. And then this is just another room off to the side on the ground floor that I discovered as if there wasn't enough going on. So I don't know who this toga-clad dude is. I haven't had time to research the exact story here, but he's with a young boy, obviously. You can see the crack in the stone there that had to be fixed, or maybe it was just a joint that needed new mortar. That's probably more likely. And then this is just a little side courtyard that I thought was notable. Obviously, these kind of staircases you don't see very often. And of course, it begs the question, what the hell is behind that door? Is it just a storage closet? Does it go down into the depths of some secret cult? Is there the Da Vinci Code down there? I mean, who knows? Oh, thanks, Sharon. She says, great staircase shots. I'm going to pause here for a moment to take my sip of my cafe creme, my double. Joan says, it seems you're the only guy there. Yeah, I was that day. I didn't have to Photoshop any people out of these photos. Sorry, I guess if you're watching on the replay, maybe it's a bit boring to stop and listen to me drink coffee. I apologize for that. But here when we make our way out the way we came, this is right at where the security guard entrance is. Back to this building that I showed you at the beginning. So this was the refectory of the Couvent des Cordeliers, that order of Franciscan monks. This was finished around 1506. And really the only structure, as far as I know, of that old monastic complex that was once here. And of course they would have been peppered throughout the left bank, you know that very well, in the medieval and Renaissance period. So 1506, and it's amazing that it's still here. In fact, the fence you see in front of it is that they were doing some restoration, thankfully, and I'm sure that project is done by now because I think these photos were taken at least a couple of years ago. So that's what you see in the front there, but I'm going to show you some more images of that. What's really remarkable, not just about the history of 1506 here and the monks, but during the French Revolution, this was taken over. This very building was commandeered by a group of revolutionaries, a particularly radical and violent and eventually bloodthirsty group. They called themselves the Club des Cordeliers, for obvious reasons, referring to the name again of this complex. And they were big names in the revolution that founded and essentially ran this revolutionary club from this building. Guys like Danton, guys like Desmoulins, guys like Marais, a lot of these big founding fathers of the French Revolution used this building as their headquarters. So they would come here, obviously, and they would have, they would have debates and give speeches and exchange ideas, but they would call for bloodshed as well from this building. And in 1792, they even gave the order from this building for the September massacres of 1792, which were a few days of particularly bloody murders where the revolutionary mob just went and systematically killed priests and opposing members to the revolution. But I want you to notice before we move on to the next slide, that right-hand side bell tower, I'm sure you've already noticed, very distinct on the right-hand corner, because I'm going to show you an engraving from 1792. And you can make out the same tower on the right-hand corner. Now, the other buildings we have in the foreground, of course, are gone now. So we can shed a quick tear for those buildings. I'm sure they'd be nice to have still kicking around. But the refectory, still remains. Tammy says, do they use it for anything now? I don't know. That's a good question. I think for exhibits, I know at least. Maybe the occasional, you can see here the work that they were doing on the entrances. Real classic Gothic. You know, it's funny, 1506, this is just a tangent. 1506 in Italy, let's say in Florence or Rome, was absolutely full-blown into the Renaissance. And they adopted it, they got rid of the Gothic, and they were all the way into the Italian Renaissance. In that same year, 1506, you would have come here and you can see that those the entrances, the portals, are absolutely still Gothic. And so France was very slow, in fact, to adopt the Renaissance style. And I always wonder, if it's because the French were like, oh no, that's too Italian and we don't want to bring it into our city. But eventually they got around to moving from Gothic to Renaissance, but they were much later than the Italians. So maybe, I hope that's interesting to somebody, but that's a quick little tangent. And then I popped a couple other images of the church here. Or just one, actually, in fact. So next, that was our first one, the medical school here on the Rue de l'École de Médecine. I hope you're lucky enough to check that out. If you've got a backpack on and you're looking youthful, go ahead and give it a shot and just run in and see what they say. Not too far from that, just a little bit westward along the Boulevard Saint-Germain, right where this little marker is a Ralph Lauren restaurant. And well, there's a store, a Ralph Lauren store. But if you pop your way through the arches, and anybody can do this, there's no security, there is a beautiful courtyard dining area for the restaurant. So it's called Ralph's Restaurant, or sometimes Ralph's Paris. It's not the most original title, but I get the feeling that Ralph Lauren has a bit of an ego on him and wants to slap his name on everything. But isn't this just stupendous? Obviously it was Christmas time and they got the fir trees on either side, but there's an indoor seating area as well, but this is Ralph's Restaurant on 173 Boulevard Saint-Germain, if you're keeping notes. Thank you, Andrea, for the super chat. She says, thank you for the beautiful start to my Sunday. I very much appreciate that, Andrea. So if you want to dine at Ralph's, you got to be ready to splurge a little bit. It's 49 euros for their cheeseburger. You may ask, what are you getting for 49 euros when you order that cheeseburger? Well, you're getting shaved black truffles for one thing, which always jacks up the price. And then the cheese on it happens to be truffled brie cheese. So first of all, you got to like truffle, because if not, you're wasting your euros. But for 49 euros, you can get that deluxe gourmet cheeseburger. If that's not splurgy enough for you, you can get their roasted lobster, which I believe goes for about 66 euros. I've not eaten here. I just checked the menu online. But what a lovely space, you know, even in the wintertime, but I'm sure in the spring when those trees in the center are blooming. Good stuff. And now we're going to pop over the river to the right bank, specifically to the Marais. I've got quite a few addresses in the Marais. I think that some of them are going to be surprises to you. You can see we're very close to Place des Vosges, so I know a lot of you are, consider yourselves to be familiar with this area. But right there, a little bit to the west, it's actually the number 4 Rue de Jarente. So you can check the description for that. We're in the 4th arrondissement now. So there is a beautiful ivy-covered courtyard here. And the gate is always, always closed. Believe me, because I've walked by it 100 times. But on this one day, it happened to be open. I don't know why, and I went for it, as you know, of course. But before we move on, check out with the ivy here. Did we lose our music? Maybe we lost our music. Hold on. Oh, hi. I didn't mean to do that. Here I am at my house. All right. Do I have to restart this? Yeah, I have to restart this. Hold on. All right. We're going to find this. Okay, excellent. So what I wanted to do is show you the difference between this and in the same view in December. So that's the difference between October and December. Still, I mean, I'd still live here, right? Who cares in the wintertime if it's not as leafy? I mean, it's still freaking amazing. And all you got to do is wait for spring to come back. But anyway, that's the difference. But this is just spectacular. It's actually a series of courtyards. Thanks, Lucienne, for those compliments on the home decor. Appreciate that. This right here, this little half timber deal, could have been originally perhaps a guardian station. All of these courtyards usually had a guardian to collect the mail and to keep the riffraff out and maybe to lead the horses into the stables. But then I wonder sometimes if this little shanty, as it were, may have even served as the stables. If you only had a couple of horses in the domain, maybe it could have been the stables, who knows? But thank God it's kept that beautiful timber feel to it. So we're going to make our way through, of course, into this courtyard, or courtyards. It doesn't really get any better than that. I throw a couple of bicycles in, blue bicycles at that. And this is just dynamite. This is looking back at that little guardian house or whatever it may be. Oh, man. Just want to camp out there. And then you go through an archway and it takes you into a couple other courtyards. Hey, Yesenia, it's great to see you live. Appreciate it. I took 2 photos of this because I just kind of liked the composition and what was happening with this sort of viney plant growing its way up this wall. I thought that was pretty nice, pretty poetic. Hi Elaine, thank you for that. She says bonjour and thank you for the beautiful photos. Appreciate that. Sharon says, oh, it's so very pretty. I know, Sharon, isn't this dynamite? To give you a little more of your bearings of where you are, we're making our way back out, of course. Through the gate to the right, in fact, you can see a little bit of it in the upper right-hand corner, is the Place du Marché Sainte-Catherine. You know that little square with the cafes? That's just off of the busy Rue Saint-Antoine. And so if you're familiar with that square of the Marché Sainte-Catherine, then you'll know sort of where we are. And so feel free on any day when you pass by to peek through the gate. I just happened to be, I found my way. In fact, by the time I was leaving, you can see the gate was closed. So that meant I really got lucky that day. As I say, you know, destiny was really smiling upon me, shining down on me, because apparently there was only a very small window of time. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is just one snapshot, but it's from just down the street. If you exit this gate and you go just to the right, and you're going to go from number 4 to number 6. And I just popped a panorama. It happened to be in December for this next one, so it was looking a little bit, you know, not very flowery. But it gives you an idea of, obviously in the Marais, it's such an old part of the city that you still get pound for pound an extraordinary number of these old cobblestone courtyards. So I would imagine whatever kind of tree that is, when that sucker's in bloom in the summer, this is probably pretty glorious. Another sip of my coffee, if you don't mind. Oh, thanks, Sharon. She says, your photography is always excellent, Corey. Perfect compositions. Thank you, Sharon. It's something I don't take lightly. I put everything that I got into it. And, you know, as with everything, sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. But it is always on my mind to make the photos as good as at least I physically can on any given day. So I very much appreciate when people appreciate. Let's get started again. Next, we're going to move down. Oh, sorry, I went a little bit too fast, but we're just on the Rue Saint-Antoine. Do you recognize this building? If you're walking down the Rue Saint-Antoine, you will see it. This is a former Hôtel Particulier, as we know the Marais is so full of. It's called the Ota De Mayen, and you can find the spelling in the description. It was begun in 1613, which puts it right at the time where we had Place des Vosges and Place Dauphine, and so you can clearly see the influence of the architecture there with the brick and limestone and the slate roofs at the top. So it just screams early 1600s for Parisian architecture. And then it later became a school, which it still is today. And I'm going to show you the courtyard inside in a moment. And I zoomed in on the sign here for you to show you the name of the school. The École des Francs-Bourgeois, 1843. Now, the school is still going strong. I don't know if it's still named that, but there's still a school. And so they happen to have a festival, like a school fair or a market going on, and that's why the door was open to the public, and I decided to just pop my way through that beautiful red door. If you can look up at the top there, there are 2 entrances, 2 doorways on either side at the very top, and this beautiful walkway to go across. I would assume that in 1613, when they built this thing, it would have been for security reasons. It's always nice to get your security members and your guards across that quickly if need be. If the, I don't know, if the Huguenots come attacking or whatever, I don't know. Did the Huguenots attack a lot? I guess everybody attacked. So this is in the courtyard. It's fun. This is a place that you would never, ever, ever get to see because it's a private, it's a closed-off school. I think they've got an elementary school, a junior high, a high school, all in this complex. And about 10 years ago or so, they did a full restoration of this whole space. So I could care less about the little market that they were doing, the fair, and I was just snapping away. Because you realize that it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing for if you're a lover of being a flaneur and discovering these secret spaces, then when you get a chance, you got to savor it because you know it's only gonna come around in a blue moon. So this tympanum, I guess we could call it, caught my eye. Beautiful, by the way, kind of Place des Vosges-esque ceilings. And I did a little zoom in here of the tympanum. I don't know, that's a goddess of some sort. My best guess, pulling this out of you-know-where, it would probably be Diana, the huntress, Diane. She seems to have sort of a horn in her right hand, which could be a hunting horn, and then there's some weaponry and a shield. If you can make it out, there are lions on either side and a helmet on the left-hand side. So I don't know, she seems like some kind of warrior or hunter. So who knows? Anyway, I thought that was pretty great that the kids get to walk under that every day on their way to class. And it doesn't stop there. There's still a lot of lovely stuff to make out. So yeah, speaking of the era of Place des Vosges, just beautiful. And look at those keystones there in the center. Oh, so good. And then we've got a Virgin and Child here with the hand-laid mosaics, and I'll zoom in here as well for you. Tara says, I want to go to school here. Nancy says she loves a red door. Yeah, that red, absolutely just stunning. And then here I got upstairs, and this gives you an idea. They just have that little school fair going on, and some of this architecture is still legit, d'origine, as they would say in French, from the origins. So here I was hanging out of a window, as I'm often wont to do. And I'm going to zoom in on some of the Courtyard details. We've got a gent here doing some charitable work for this little orphan baby. I assume whenever I see a religious man with a baby in his arms, I assume it's an orphan. Could be Jesus Christ though, right? It probably is Jesus. I apologize for that, Jesus. I didn't mean to call you an orphan. My bad. No disrespect. And then look at this. This old bell. Probably from in the early days when it was a school in the 19th century, right? Maybe they would have used that bell to signal the classes. And then I did a zoom in here. Just how spectacular is that? Oh, God, I just want to touch it. I just want to lick it. Is that wrong? It's probably wrong. That's probably wrong, but anyway. And then heading back downstairs. Again, brick, all of the ceilings. And then on the steps themselves of these staircases, I always get a kick out of this. We forget sometimes that this limestone had to come from way, way, way beneath Paris. And in fact, the stones that make up Paris here, and these fossils are a testament to that, are around 45 million years old. So if you want to be cheeky about it, you could say that Paris itself, as far as its structures that were built, it's a 45 million year old city as far as the products used to build it. And these fossils are they're everywhere. If you really stop to look for them, they're all through Notre Dame and all the old churches and the columns that, maybe there's a beautiful church column that from 20 feet away looks smooth as ice or smooth as whatever. And then you get closer and you realize there are all these fossils from 45 million years ago. At that time, when all of this stone was being forged, essentially, Paris was a tropical climate. It was completely covered by ocean water, sandy beaches, lush vegetation. It was, I always imagine it as sort of like a Hawaii on cocaine or something. It was just like really, really hot tropical climate, wet climate. And eventually it dried up and it became Paris. But these little fossils are a very subtle reminder, and just millions and millions of years old, these little creatures. And I think it's so great that in addition to the 2,000 years of written history of Paris that we have and we sort of bask in, it goes so much farther beyond that. And I don't know, hopefully that's interesting to some of you. Always look out for the fossils in the limestone if you want to take it to another level and dig even deeper. Here's a gentle méthode simultanée, simultaneous method. I guess that's what he's known for. Doesn't mean much more to me than that. I'm not smart enough to know what that method is, but he's looking pretty dapper, this dude. And then making our way back out. There's a lot of sunlight, a lot of low-hanging sun, sort of a dusk vibe on the stones. Really created a fun orange hue that I liked. So let's pop up to another one here. We're going just across the street, really, up to Place des Vosges. And you know, Place des Vosges has those arcades all around. And some of the doorways are open, some of them are always closed. This is one that is almost always closed, but I made it in one day. And you can let me know in the comments if any of you have been lucky enough to pop in. This is technically number 9 of the Place des Vosges. It's sort of, if you're familiar with when you're in the Ota De Mayen garden. Oh, I'm sorry, wanted to pause. If you're in the garden of the Ota De Mayen and you come through the door, it's right on the left. And I don't know why my music's cutting out. I guess that's just how it is. Next time I'll do the music differently, I apologize. I wanted a nice chill soundtrack, but the app isn't cooperating. That's all right, I'll figure it out for next time. So if you pop in through number 9, this is just, woo, it's fantastic. And there's a gallery in the back that I'll talk about in a moment. You can see the name of the gallery there. It's a lady, that's her full name, Nikki Diana Marcar. And you could just easily see that name and not think too much about it and say, okay, it's another fancy, luxurious gallery and move on. But I Googled her and I was like, I want to get to the, what is this courtyard all about? What's special about this address? It turns out she is quite a character, quite an interesting lady. She's a former New Yorker who's lived in Paris a long time. So of course she's got my vote right there. I mean, kindred spirit. She got a doctorate in psychology, but then came to Paris and studied art history at the Louvre and the Sorbonne, and then went to study in Italy as well, and then came back to Paris and became an assistant to Marais, of course the great surrealist, who, if you remember in Midnight in Paris, was featured alongside Dali. He was one of the gents who came in and sat down right next to Dali in Midnight in Paris, and so that was Marais. So this lady, after getting her psychology doctorate, studying art history at the Louvre and the Sorbonne, became an assistant to Man Ray, opened a gallery here, this gallery in 1986, and at the time partnered up with some of the great New York artists like Lichtenstein and Rauschenberg and Frank Stella, and that's really all you need to know about this Nikki character, because she is absolutely the real deal. And I was curious, I've never been inside the gallery, so I was curious, I pulled from their own Facebook page an image of the interiors, this panorama. So you can see it's quite a lovely space, and they use this for fashion shows, they of course for artistic shows, photography exhibits, but also movies have been filmed. As you can see, it can be easily used as a film set if need be. So it's kind of a multi-purpose space and actually quite large. I know the panorama makes it look big, but it's actually quite large considering it's tucked away in this little courtyard. And then I just loved this close-up. This really feels like a father-son vibe. Just, oh, it's so good. This is one of those, I even was wondering if I should use this as a thumbnail for this episode because it's just so tasty. John says, I love your art history. Thanks, John. I think it really adds another element. This here, I don't know what you think about this image, but for me, sometimes it's not just the classical beauty, but the fact that it's just kind of rustic and ragtag, and the paint's peeling off and the plaster's falling apart, but I just love there's an everyday life aspect too. They're not just putting on airs, the Parisians in these courtyards. So here you've got, what I love is they think if we don't have a beautiful manicured garden that was part of the conception of the courtyard originally, let's just grab a bunch of potted plants and just add greenage, no matter how you got to do it. And so I thought that was charming in that respect. And then just behind this on the opposite street, so you can see here where I've marked it. So we are, in fact, do you see the little orange star marker along Place des Vosges? That's where we just were. And then if you wrap yourself around, you can't walk all the way through, but if you wrap yourself around to the parallel street behind, this is one that maybe some of you with a keen eye you've actually noticed. So there's a gate. I'm actually photographing through a gate. You can't access this garden, but you're looking at the backside of part of the Place des Vosges. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. I love it every time. Every single time I just tell myself I want to live there. So yeah, you need a zoom lens and you got to poke your camera through the gate here, but it's on the Rue de Turenne, number 14 to be exact. And it's the 17th century, just like all of the Place des Vosges, and you can see via the architecture that it is original. And of course, when Place des Vosges was first built, it was built for King Henri IV and all the aristocrats and the nobles and the members of the king's royal court. So there were always high-end clientele living in these places. Eventually, in 1680, this very palace, as it were, this part of Place des Vosges was purchased by a duke, and his name was Louis de Rohan-Chabot. So this became known as the Hôtel de Rohan, which is spelled R-O-H-A-N. And his claim, this duke's claim to fame, or at least the highlight of his career, was that he was a representative for Louis XIV in Brittany. He was the king's Brittany representative, and so he must have done very well for himself during those times. Later, this house was seized by the French revolutionaries, no surprise there, and it was given over to a painter. There was a female painter who resided in this building, and that was pretty much the revolution in a nutshell. Let's take a Duke's home and turn it into a nice little studio for a painter, right? Giving it back to the people. I think I've got one more image here. So this isn't necessarily hidden because anybody walking down the street can see this through the gate, but even I forget to sometimes look at it. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention if you're walking, that maybe you've even passed by it without noticing. This is the last one, I believe. And we're going to leave the Marais and we're going to go up to the 9th arrondissement. If you can see there, we've got the Église de la Sainte Trinité here in the 9th arrondissement. We've also got the Gare Saint-Lazare to the left to give you your bearings. And then Montmartre is sort of the upper right area. In fact, we are on a street here called the Rue Blanche, which will lead you, if you walk upward, northward, long enough, it will lead you straight to the Moulin Rouge and Place Blanche. So this is one that people don't necessarily see as often, but it caught my eye one day. I thought it was pretty stupendous. It's got this beautiful ochre-colored stone to it and these arches, and again, the gate is always closed, but it just happened to be open this one day. Thank you, Anna, for the super chat. She says, thanks for always bringing Paris and France to us in these crazy times. Many thanks to you, Anna. I appreciate the support. And I love the green. I love the greens and the oranges here. I just love the symmetry. By the way, I did my damnedest to straighten out this image. But if you look at it, it's so wonky, like everything, look at the top of all the windows and how wonky those all are. And then in the center, you've got that strip of architecture going, that's not straight either. The bottom's not straight. So you got to just kind of take it as it is. But I think it's really fun, spectacular. This is the address specifically, if you need it, is number 17 Rue Blanche. And again, you'll find all this in the description. And then I had to zoom in just for symmetry's sake, rather. Excuse me. Lauren says the color palette is amazing. Corin says my favorite colors. Look at this bench. This bench is just calling to you, folks. It's just waiting for you to come and enjoy a quiet moment. Again, I'm not photoshopping any people out of these photos. And finally, right across, just so you know, this is a little bonus, but across the street from this address is a fire station. They call it Caserne des Pompiers, and it's quite lovely. So I don't have a photo. I had to steal it from Google Maps, Google Street View. But this is essentially right across the street. It's called the Caserne Blanche, and it's part of the fire station of the 9th arrondissement. So if you're in this area, keep your eyes open for that too, across the street from the Courtyard. And that, folks, is about it. Thank you so much, Nancy, for that super chat. I appreciate that. So we are going to get rid of that. I'm going to go back to my interior of my home. Let's get comfortable here. The pumpkins are still there. That's good. Thanks, Ricky, for that super chat. Great photos as always. Thanks, Corey. I appreciate that. By the way, before I forget, if you're wondering, the answer is yes. I did Photoshop in another Owen Wilson in one of the photos today. I didn't notice in the comments live if anybody pointed him out, but if you did see him, then bravo. I did this last episode, if you're not familiar with this idea, just in honor of Midnight in Paris, and I Photoshopped in a little Owen Wilson, and I didn't tell anybody until the end, and I said that they had to go back and find it like a little bit of an Easter egg. And I decided to do the same thing today, so you can let me know. Heather says I'm not paying attention. So if you're interested, if you've got free time, you can scroll back through and let me know in the comments if you found the little Owen Wilson that I tucked away in there in an image. Just decided to have some fun. As if I don't have enough work to do on these episodes, I thought, let's have some fun with it. So if you don't already know, I know that I'm a broken record. Many of you already know this, but you'll find a link in the description if you want to support this project on Patreon. And that is always much appreciated for sure. And also, you can like this video, you can subscribe, and all of that stuff. I think that's about it. Now, if you're a current Patreon member and you're in our Facebook group called Cafe Chats group, then we're going to pop over there in about 10 minutes. Can you give me 10 minutes this time as opposed to the usual 5? Because I got to take care of some quick things, and I'll probably make another one of these. And we'll have a chat. I'm just going to check the live comments here. Shona, would love to know your recipe for your double crème. It's really not fancy. I use a combination of milk and heavy cream, just because I don't like when it's 100% milk. So yeah, it's that, and then I just coffee capsule. I'm not a coffee snob by any means. Maybe one day I will become one. It's in the cards maybe, but it hasn't happened yet. So it's really basic. It's just espresso. I don't use filtered coffee, but decent espresso, milk, and I like to add like some cream in there as well. Thanks, Jay Palmer. I appreciate that. Very generous. Thanks for the support. I feel like I'm sweating speaking of this double cafe creme. All right, I'm going to see you. I'm not going to drag this out. Thanks. I'll catch you for episode 98 in no time. Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and hope you're doing well. I will catch you on the next episode. Patreon members, give me 10 minutes, and I'll see you over in our Facebook group for an extended chat. Take care. If you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'm going to bring you at least to my house. And I hope for now that's good enough. We'll get back on the streets, don't worry. And that's about it. Again, I've dragged out a goodbye longer than it needed to be, but par for the course. Take care, everybody. Thanks a lot for the support, and I'll see you on the next one.